And we're back. The other horrific story, there's so many that come from the Orange Ape, but the one that really has blown a lot of people's minds, certainly mine, and I would imagine yours also, and that is the Russian bounties that were paid to militants in Afghanistan, which resulted in the deaths of U.S. troops, according to intelligence assessments from the intelligence community that Trump trusts the least, and that is our intelligence community. He likes the Russians, but not this one. Now, we talked about this last week, but, and again, I stipulate that, in my opinion, we have no business being in Afghanistan 17 years after George W. Bush ordered troops to go there. We just have no business being there. We have no business having invaded Iraq. I mean, the whole thing is just another indication of the insanity of some of the leadership in this country. But I digress. It is now believed that these bounties offered to the militants by a Russian military intelligence unit resulted in the deaths of several U.S. service members. And that's according to the intelligence that was gotten during interrogations of captured militants in recent months. Oh, that again. Interrogations. Well, several people familiar with the matter, according to the Washington Post, said it was unclear exactly how many Americans or coalition troops from other countries may have been killed or targeted under this program. U.S. forces in Afghanistan suffered a total of 10 dead from hostile gunfire, or IEDs, in 2018. 16 last year. Doesn't seem like a lot, does it? Well, in the grand scheme of things, it isn't, unless one of those 16 or those 19 happen to be your dad, your son, your daughter, your cousin, your brother, your sister. Who said it? One death is a tragedy. 1 million deaths is a statistic. 2 people have been killed so far this year, 2 of our people. And each of those years, 2018, 2019, several members of the U.S. military were also killed by what are known as green on blue hostile incidents by members of Afghan security forces who are supposed to be aligned with us. But some U.S. intelligence experts believe that those so-called security forces have been infiltrated by the Taliban. And again, I think I mentioned this to our patron subscribers on Sunday. Not only do we not have any business being in Afghanistan, but historically, over 4 centuries, 5, 6, 8, 10 centuries, Afghanistan is where empires go to die. Even more than that. You have to go back to Alexander the Great. Genghis Khan. The Brits twice. The Russians. And now us. This is where empires go to die, Afghanistan. Nobody ever has, nobody ever will defeat the Afghan people. Call them what you want. Taliban, Northern Alliance, militants, it doesn't mean shit. What matters is that it's there, they consider it to be their country, and they will fight, and they will win. That's all. Very simple. Anyway, this intelligence about the Russian military intelligence unit putting a price on the head of American service personnel, that was passed up from the U.S. Special Operations Forces based in Afghanistan and it led to a restricted, high-level White House meeting in late March. Now, according to the Washington Post, listen up, the meeting led to broader discussions about possible responses to the Russian action, ranging from diplomatic expressions of disapproval and warnings to sanctions, according to two of the people attending these meetings. Now, again, I mentioned this Sunday for our patron subscribers, but that's a pretty select group. You can become part of that group if you want to. But for broader broadcasts is why I'm repeating it now. Anyway, the people who reported that these meetings occurred and others who discussed the matter spoke on the condition of anonymity to the Washington Post because of the sensitivity. Anonymity because of the sensitivity. Now, this intelligence, and yeah, the Post calls it disturbing, I would call it horrifying, which the CIA was given the task of reviewing, and after they did so, they confirmed it. Yeah, CIA again, here we go. But it generated disagreement about the appropriate path forward, according to a senior U.S. official. The administration's special envoy for Afghanistan, one Zalmay Khalilzad, preferred confronting the Russians directly about the matter. That would make sense, wouldn't it? While some National Security Council officials in charge of Russia didn't want to take immediate action. Why jump to conclusions? Now, just wait a minute. Now, it remained unclear where those discussions have led to date, because verifying such intelligence is a process that can take weeks, if it ever comes out. I mean, some of the atrocities committed by our forces in various combat situations, including World War II, Korea, Vietnam, some of, those atrocities, under code names like winning the hearts and minds, none of that shit comes out until it's so far beyond the time when anything other than half-assed apologies can be offered can take place, right? So, yeah, it can take weeks, months, years to get confirmation of this kind of intelligence, especially if it involves the CIA and the National Security Agency. The CIA assessment took some time, according to the Post, and coincided with the scaling back and slowing down of the number of government functions as the coronavirus pandemic began to take hold, right? So undercover, and I mean this just the way it sounds, under cover of this hideous virus, the Orange Ape and his administration, whether he was notified of this or not, is immaterial. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't read presidential daily briefs. He doesn't pay attention to governing because he's a gangster. He's a thug, and he's an ape. He pays no attention to any of this stuff. So who knows? Who knows how much Trump knew? But his inner circle of mobsters have been using the coronavirus as cover for all kinds of nefarious shit. Just stuff that would probably make our heads spin. Like the girl in The Exorcist, right? When do you think we'll find out about it? I probably won't. I won't live long enough. How about you? Asked to comment, a National Security Council spokesman, one John Uliat, said, quote, the veracity of the underlying allegations continue to be evaluated, end quote. Do you like that? That's National Security Council speak. The veracity of the underlying allegations continue to be evaluated, which means we don't have a goddamn clue what's going on here, but we're trying to find out. Okay? This is our gutted intelligence community in this country. gutted because Trump didn't like some of the assessments that were coming back, especially where it concerned the assistance he got and asked for from the Russians to have him steal the presidency of the United States. Now, Russia and the Taliban have denied the existence of the program. What? What? Us? What? Me? What? Nah, never happened. Never happened. Among the coalition of NATO forces in Afghanistan, the Brits were briefed late last week on all this information that was coming into U.S. intelligence. But as more details have unfolded, the primary controversy in Washington over the weekend, see, this is reported by the New York Times Friday evening. This is when the story broke. But over the weekend, the main controversy in the Orange Apes, Washington, revolved around denials by the ape and his aides that the ape was ever even briefed on the intelligence. And you tend to kind of believe maybe he wasn't. Who's going to go to him with stuff like this? He's not going to read it. He's not going to pay attention to it. He doesn't give a shit. And the ape on Sunday confirmed statements by John Ratcliffe, who's the Director of National Intelligence, and the White House press secretary, that yes, he received no briefing, nothing on the subject. And he referred to this in his little tweet shit as, quote, so-called reports by, quote, fake news. This is the President of the United States. He also tweeted this, quote, nobody briefed or told me, Vice President Pence or Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, about the so-called attacks on our troops in Afghanistan by Russians, as reported through a, quote, anonymous source by the fake news. This is Trump tweeting. He goes on. Everybody is denying it, and there have not been many attacks on us. And nobody's been tougher on Russia than the Trump administration, end quote. So that was his response. Nobody told us, and I've been tough. But as is always the case, the ape's Twitter remarks didn't clarify whether the administration was denying that the assessment existed to begin with, or simply denying that Trump knew anything about it. Either way, do you understand what this means about Trump? Yeah, why go to the orange ape with intelligence information that he should have known about and probably had access to but didn't give a shit in March? And some reports say last year, these reports were coming in about Russian intelligence targeting American soldiers. But why go to Trump? What's the point? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to The Ranting with the audio podcast, or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.